Hey everyone, I'm Kate Kennedy and I'm here with day 80 of 100 Days of Kane, PA. And as you guys know, people in Kane have really generous and big hearts. And today we're going to hear some stories from Tanya Hartzell about how she's seen that to ring true in the work that she does and with this organization that she created called Cleaning Out Your Closets. So I'm going to go ahead and flip you around and we're going to go ahead and walk in and hear from Tanya. Hey Tanya.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
I'm really excited to hear your stories. There's been some great work and some really generous people that you've encountered in your time here in Kane. But before we go there, let's start with you were born and raised in Kane, right?
I was.
Okay, what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 2002.
Okay, what was it like for you to grow up as a kid in Kane? What were some of the things you did? How did you spend your time?
So I have two older brothers and they had a lot of friends. So I think athletics started pretty early in my life. There was always wiffle ball games out back with them. And then as I grew up, we transitioned to kickball. And then a lot of my friends and I spent a lot of time at the courts playing basketball.
Yeah, that's
riding
awesome.
bikes, things like that.
Right. Just being outside
Yeah.
and getting together and doing activities together, like the sports that you're talking
Yep.
about. That's awesome. And so then you graduated high school. You went to school for psychology, you said earlier.
Yep.
And what are you doing today? What's your job?
I am the family advocate at the Children's Advocacy Center in McKean County, and that's in Smethport, and for short, it's the CAC.
Okay, so we reference the CAC, that's what
Yeah.
that is.
Yep.
Okay, and in your job, you started to notice that there were some needs and you wanted to help. And so you started cleaning out your closets. Could you tell us the story of how that started?
Sure, I would love to. So I started in the social services field back in 2008, and that was with Children and Youth Services. And that went from being an ongoing caseworker to then I started working at the Victims Resource Center, which is a department of the YWCA Bradford, and that is the VRC. We use a lot of acronyms in our world. And then now, of course, at the CAC. So throughout all of that time, working with children or adults who have been abused in some way, throughout that time, obviously people have other needs. And I noticed throughout all of these years that not every agency can provide for those needs. They don't always have what's available.
You're talking about like more like the material goods
Material
that people
goods,
might
like
need.
clothing, kitchen items, furniture, beds, things like that.
Right, so they're coming to you and they're maybe in this really difficult situation of needing to start a new home and they might not have all of the resources available to purchase new things. And they need to have these material items for their home.
Right, to move forward with anything, whatever services they may need, or to be able to start over, it's important, I think, to have a house or an apartment that feels like home. And to, when you have to prioritize every single bill that you have, those things are going to be on the back burner because you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your utilities. And a lot of times parents will take care of their kids first, so they'll leave certain things behind, and it becomes normal to operate on the bare minimum, but that bare minimum isn't what it means. Their bare minimum isn't what it means to a lot of us.
Right. And so what did you do? You see this need, and how did you step in to try to fill the gap?
In years past, through where I worked, friends would donate just their clothing, and I would take it to the domestic violence shelter in Bradford, and because we would keep things there, or if I knew a family directly, nothing real structured or official. It was just, I have these clothes. Can you take them? Do you think you could take them somewhere? Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But in August of 2018, I told you earlier, I got a wild hair. And I decided to start a Facebook group called Cleaning Out Your Closets because I kept seeing frequent posts on Facebook of where can I take my things, whatever they may be, to people who could use them. And it just seemed like there was a string of them coming in just a short stretch. So I made that group. I set it for super secret private settings, I thought, and it turned into over 250 members. And
So not super
no,
secret.
I had no idea how to set that. And I also couldn't share it with anybody. So as things progressed along, I wasn't able to invite people. So just a few weeks ago, actually 1 year after I started the Facebook page, I made an official page. So now people can search for it, and there's already over 250 people that like that page.
They'll want to help, yeah.
So it's been pretty amazing.
So if someone sees on this page, this Facebook page, that there is a need, or they're saying, hey, I have this, can you take it? What was the process? Like, did it go to you? Did you pick it up? How did that connection get made?
It took me a while to get a routine. So people were dropping things off. People still drop things off. There are times that I go pick them up, and the majority of people who have donated, and it's been over 200 people that have donated in a year, are from Kane.
That's
but a lot of
incredible.
them are throughout the county because they've heard either from people that I work with or just on Facebook. So I travel a lot for work in different places, or I take extra trips and pick things up. It's not a concrete method, I guess. It's just whatever works best for everybody and their schedules. Sometimes it takes me a few days to empty my car and pick up new things, but
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you gather these items, and then how do people who have a need get connected to you?
so prior to this past August 10th, it was basically either families that I worked with, so obviously I knew them, or I have a lot of connections because through work we contract with Cameron, Elk, and Potter counties. So I know a lot of their caseworkers, a lot of their advocates, and I had just told them about it. So if they were working with families or any other service providers were working with families, it was basically a text or a phone call or an email, and they would help me connect with that person, or I would deliver things to them for them to get to the family. I did make official forms now, so all of the service providers in the area have those. And on August 10th, there was a community outreach event up here where it was basically a cleaning out your closet of cleaning out your closets. So I had been collecting things because part of my vision was to have things available at my house as far as clothing goes, so that if there was an emergency situation, to have a variety of sizes available. So if there was a house fire, or someone was displaced for any reason and needed something, maybe I would have that available. So I learned over a year what I need to keep and what I need to move along quickly. Everything comes in and goes out so quickly that it's really not an issue, but I needed to clear some space. And part of that event, I wanted to reach more people. So not only people could have come to that event and filled out a form and filled a bag for free of whatever sizes they needed, or people could come and shop, and that donation would go towards the project. So
And that was up here at the community center where we are. Yeah.
And a lot of people helped volunteer with that, and it was just to see the setup. And the night before we set up, and I told a few of them this, I didn't care if anybody showed up that day on Saturday. My heart was pretty full, and I just got choked up. Just seeing everybody who wanted to come help was pretty amazing. So just setting it up, it wasn't going to matter to me if anybody showed up, because I knew those people had already been reached. And it kind of hit me how many people have been reached throughout it, not just those who are receiving, but the people who are donating.
Yeah, so you get to really connect with all types of people and hear lots of stories of people, both the ones receiving the items, but as well as the people that are giving the items. What has that meant to you?
Well, I've always wanted to write a book, and I have that plan, but I think this is going to be a separate book, because there's been so many stories. It's rewarding isn't even the word. I don't even know what the exact word is. It's just meant a lot to be able to fulfill those needs, I guess, and kind of fit in the gap and help these people. Anybody. I mean, it's been a wide variety of situations, a wide variety of people, and I had told you earlier about people who have donated, it's also helping them in their situations. It's been anywhere from people who lost a loved one and are cleaning things out, and that's difficult in itself, and then to find a home for everything. I've seen a sense of peace that people have when they know it's going somewhere to help someone.
It's like a legacy of their loved one continues
right
through this.
And then people moving, that they need to move out by a certain time, or they're selling their house, or just there's been so many different situations. It's hard to talk about all of them. I try to post as many as I can on the Facebook page, and because I made that new page, I did screenshot and make albums of past stories so that people could try and catch up if they haven't seen things, because it's easier for me to tell those stories in the moment, because something happens with this project weekly, daily, pretty much. But
what will you share a few of those stories about people receiving?
Sure. One that I like to tell the most is, I'll just tell it. I received a call from the Victims Resource Center about a woman who had moved back to the county, ended up in an abusive situation, her and her children, and they were able to help find her a new place here. She had lived in a different state before, but they moved her out before she could get back to her home state. So they had given me a list of items. I had those items ready to deliver, and a couple days later, just before I was getting ready to deliver, I received a phone call that she had found a way back to her home state. So great news, she was going to be safe. I didn't think much more about it. I was just going to keep those donations for the next phone call. And shortly after that, the woman who was going to receive the donations reached out to me, and she had to get rid of everything that was in her apartment, which wasn't much, but people had already donated some things like pots and pans, blankets, things like that, to help her get started while she was waiting to get home. And instead of leaving them there or setting them out for the trash, she made sure to get a hold of me because she wanted everything to go back to the project. So that really meant a lot that she thought of that in her own situation, and when she was going to be the one receiving things, wanting to help go back. So
that is really special, right? Like, she was somebody that was in a really tough situation and had already received some of the items she needed, but she got to go home to her home state before you got to deliver the other items to complete her apartment. And instead of just like throwing out the items that she got, she was thinking of passing it ahead to the next person who might need the items that she already had, so she gave them to you.
Right.
She trusted you to know who to connect them with. That's incredible. That shows like such a goodness of people.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you said there's a variety of people that you helped. And when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you help veterans as well. Do you have any stories or like a typical situation of a veteran who might need help?
I have a lot of them, and those are some of my favorite stories. That connection is through another service that's provided in our county and surrounding counties, and a friend that works for that agency has reached out several times to help with veterans and homeless, and actually they have a new grant that they're working with opioid addiction and people coming out of rehab and helping them find housing too. But as far as the veterans go, just a few weeks ago, he had reached out about, and I still can't remember what the first item was, a mattress and a chair. I believe it was he and his son that found a new place. He had been living outside for I don't know how long, I don't know those specifics, but he was homeless, and he had been connected with this agency, and I had those two things. We delivered them, and I had noticed he had furniture in his house. There was a couch. I mean, everything was furnished, and he had mentioned to me that he was renting everything from a rent-a-center or someplace like that, which has ridiculously high payments for people to be able to afford. And I know it was tough for him to admit that he wasn't able to afford that payment, but through conversation, I guess he trusted to tell me that, and he had said his next payment was due September 3rd, and all that he needed was a couch and a chair to replace the other things. Because he had, at that time, we had in between, I forgot to tell you this part, in between I had found him a coffee table and end stands and things like that.
Nice.
So we were, the only two things left that he had rented and had a payment for were the couch and chair. So this was a couple weeks ago, and I was driving home. I knew I didn't have a couch or a chair on my list, and I was racking my brain trying to figure out, should I reach out for one? Should I wait to see if someone's going to come along with one? And how can we get these items before September 3rd so he doesn't have to try and make this payment and be able to buy food instead of make this rental payment? And the next day, I had a message from a couple that had a couch and chair to donate.
Isn't that amazing?
So we lined it up, and he was able to get everything back to the Rent-A-Center, and he didn't have to make a payment on September 3rd. So
oh my gosh, I have chills hearing that story, that someone had this need and someone had the resources and you were the conduit, and you didn't even have to ask. The timing just worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and that's what this whole project has been, and that's why I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing, I guess, because the timing for a lot of situations has been spot on. And it's been, one day someone will say, could you use this item? And I'll think, I'm not sure if I can find a home for that. And the next day someone asks for that.
Oh my gosh.
So when people ask what I'll take as far as donations go, I really do say I can find a home for anything, because it's been working out that way.
That's amazing. And I'm sure for you, that must just feel so good to be the connector of those items. And this is not your job. Like,
No.
This is what you do in your spare time.
This is
You
my
have
hobby.
a job. That's amazing.
People, and this is one thing that I try to tell people, because I know other people see it and assume that I'm overwhelmed and that it's an overwhelming project. There hasn't been one, and I'll explain what that one time of feeling overwhelmed is, but it's not overwhelming for me. It's actually kind of like a therapy from real work stuff. So it filled a lot of my time that needed to be filled when it happened.
That's amazing.
The only thing that I get overwhelmed about is when my schedule doesn't work out for things.
Yeah. Oh, right. Scheduling.
Because
Yeah.
work gets in the way of fun
Yeah.
things sometimes.
Well, speaking of fun things, I know that you are a huge Pittsburgh Pirates fan.
I am.
And we were talking earlier about one quote that was really from a former Pirate that was really instrumental to you and meaningful to you. Would you want to share that with us?
Sure, and I put it on my phone just so I don't mess it up. I think I know it by heart by now, but just in case. So Roberto Clemente said, anytime you have an opportunity to make a difference in this world and you don't, then you're wasting your time on earth.
I think that you are such the example of somebody that is making the most of your time here on earth and really making a huge impact. I feel so moved hearing the stories that you shared today, and just thank you for doing that. Is there anything else that you want to share that you didn't get a chance to?
No, if anybody, well, one thing I guess, there is a new project too that I'm involved with that stemmed from the cleaning out your closets, and it's going to be a little more official and not ran from out of my house. But we also have a Facebook page, and it's called Mattresses Across McKean County, and that was developed out of my Leadership McKean group.
Oh, cool.
And it has to do with filling some gaps that are in our county to be able to provide for those in need. So
That's amazing. So for both of the projects, cleaning out your closet and mattresses across McKean County,
Yep.
They're both on Facebook.
Yep.
People can search that.
Yeah.
Tanya, you're so inspiring. Thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything else?
No.
Well, we really appreciate your time today, but also what you're doing for people here in Kane, as well as across the counties. So thank you for that. And thanks for sharing your stories today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Oh my gosh, isn't that amazing to hear the ways that people step in to fill in the gaps, and that Tanya is the perfect conduit for that. So there are people that have needs, and there are people that have resources, and then there's a people like Tanya who can connect the two at the perfect timing. So I feel very inspired and filled up from this story today. I hope you do too. What are some ways that you have gotten involved in helping people in our community? I'd love to hear from you. Let's keep spreading the positivity and writing out in the comments what it is that you've seen that you've done to help, or ways that you've received help. So please comment below. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you again tomorrow for day 81.